Hello everyone, welcome. My name is MJ Pestridge. Welcome to another flight simulation video. Today we're talking about performance of your PC, your operating system, and your flight simulator. Today I'm going to take you through my personal one-stop shop guide, walkthrough, however you want to say it, to basically creating from scratch a perfect flight simulation PC. Now, this is going to be a bit of an involved video because we're talking about highly technical and highly complex things. So I'm sorry if you haven't got the patience to watch all of this. Every step in here is something I've personally done that I can recommend, that I have verified that is accurate, and it's how I get my performance out of my PC. If you've got a PC and you feel like you could actually get more out of it and tune it for flight simulation, this is going to be the perfect video for you to watch. But it is involved. Okay, there are several key steps. I've made it as easy as possible by streamlining all the steps down and sort of giving you what you need to do and be able to do this kind of on your own. But I do recommend that you run this guide alongside you doing it as you do it, and therefore nothing can go wrong, and you will basically create your PC into a flight simulation PC. Now, I also do gaming on my PC as well as flight simulation, and just tuning it to a flight simulator PC means that I can run all my games on ultra, the full whack of graphics, and everything looks great, everything performs great, because flight simulation and gaming are two separate things, you know. They use the processes of your PC completely different, you know, and it's like a gaming rig will be set up differently and use the hardware differently than a flight simulation rig. And I predominantly use my PC as a flight simulator, so I want to get the best out of it, and that's what exactly this guide has. Now, another disclaimer is that I don't really have a location where I could actually store and hand out files. So I've chosen to put it in my Discord. There's a link down below. If you go into my Discord, into the free Flight Sim Assets channel, you can basically get the resource pack that I've created. I've called it the Adam Experience just as a joke, to be honest, but it's only 40 megabytes, but it's everything you need to basically create a flight simulation PC. Now, you can run this if you've already got P3D installed, like I have. I've already got P3D installed. I'm going to go through this now. Or ideally, the best way is after a clean installation of Windows on a brand new clean installation. That is the best thing to do. And just for real quick, I want to talk about the hardware. So if you're wanting to create the ultimate PC for flight simulation, there's like 3 or 4 components that you really need to have tuned to perfection, and that is your CPU, your memory, and your GPU. Those 3 elements are key to flight simulation, okay? Your drive, of course, there is a difference because there's different types of drives out there. You have SSDs, which is a solid state drive, or you have the HDD, which is just a normal disk drive, and it has a platter, and it's a bit slower than the SSDs, so you'll take a performance hit with loading textures or even flying. And then of course you've got the M2 drives, which are even faster than an SSD drive, and it really, you would use each one of those drives differently depending on what drive it is. So I mean, I'm going to try and run through it all, but my personal recommendation, if you want to be able to run either P3D, Microsoft X-Plane, you need a PC that has a CPU with a base speed at least 4 gigahertz. That's the minimum requirement. Now, the recommended is up to 5 gigahertz, as close to 5 gigahertz as you can get it. Now, as you can see, my CPU is 4.2 gigahertz. I overclock mine to like 4.9, although 2 cores I actually have got running on 5 gigahertz, and then these run on 4.9. So basically getting a CPU up to 5 gigahertz, you will be able to run it smoother. Your memory, at the end of the day, certain motherboards can only take so much memory. I can have a maximum of 64 gig, so I will be upgrading to a 64 gig in the future, but I've got 32. I would say your minimum for flight simulation currently is 16 gig. If you've got anything less than 16 gig, you're really going to struggle to be able to run it the way you want to, and you're going to have to make compromises to be able to run it the way your PC will allow you to. The third one is your graphics card. Now, if you're a P3D person like myself, it's GPU intensive and you need as much GPU memory as you can get. I would say anything less than 10 gig, you're going to have to tune down your settings, especially in 5.1, if you're going to be able to do it successfully. I'm not saying you can't, but you're going to really have to tune down your settings. Anything 10 gig and plus, you're laughing. You can handle quite a lot. I've got the 1080 Ti. It gives me 11 gig and I'm able to run loads of apps on it, and it doesn't really spike up to 100 unless I've got a problem with my hardware. Same with my CPU. It doesn't really get up to 100 unless I've got problems on my computer. And the memory, to be honest, I've never maxed out. So now if you're using a HD drive, there's going to be certain things we're going to run through that you're going to need to do, whereas if you've got SSD, you don't need to do these things. You might have to actually reverse them on your PC because they might actually be set up for a HD configuration. And we'll go through that at a later date. So the first thing I would say is those are my like, that's the ultimate computer. Okay. A 5 gigahertz CPU, you know, a 20 to 25 gig VRAM GPU, and 64 gig of memory. That's and all running SSDs and M2 drives. That's the dream PC, guys. Okay, so we work with what we've got, right? So first things first, go into my Discord. The link is down below. Grab this file, the Adam Experience, I've called it, right? It contains everything you're going to need inside to be able to run and create a flight simulation PC. Now, again, I'm not saying that if you don't do these steps that you know you're going to have problems, right? Or you're not going to get everything. It's at the end of the day, this is exactly what I do, and that's all I'm showing. Okay, you can, if you want to cherry pick from this, that's up to you. You won't see the same results as I do. You'll see different results. Everything I go through here is crucial. Everything I go through here is everything I do. Okay, so for me, it's crucial. The first thing you want to do is open up the read first notepad. Okay, and this is basically just a little small introduction. It's going to contain a video link. This is the video that I'm creating, so at the moment there is no video link, but it will contain one. And basically it's going to say you need to go get a few things first. Now, everything in here is verified. There's no viruses, there's no dodgy dealings. I haven't included these items within my little pack here because these are continually getting updated, so I don't want this pack being suddenly out of date in a month. I want to try and keep this as fresh and current as possible from the time of recording. So these you go and get yourselves from the developers' websites only. Do not download them from third parties. Do not accept them off anybody else. Go get them straight from the source. This one is included with the pack because at the end of the day, you could go to the website and download it yourself if you want to, but this gets rarely has updates. It has like 2 or 3 a year, and when you install it, it'll actually say if it's out of date and you need to install the update, and it will take you to the location where you can get it. So that one I have included, as you can see in this pack, there is this adware cleaner. This isn't something you install, it's something you just run, and it's this program here. I'm going to talk briefly about what each of these does, but I've already gone ahead and downloaded that and put it in here, but you won't see it in your pack because you'll go get, and it might be a different version, that's why. So, but a quick brief run through. CC Cleaner is an excellent tool for keeping your registry clean and in check. So your registry is the Windows PC basically Bible of how to run. It contains all the values that keep everything and instructions on running your operating system. So if the values get changed and tweaked, you're altering your Windows operating system from the core the system, you know, the core files. You know, it's almost the same as bringing up a display and tick boxing and checking things. It's almost the same as that, but Windows will never recommend that you play with the registry, because they want you to run your PC the way the operating system wants you to run it. So they will always say you should never change your registry. If you know what you're doing, there is absolutely nothing wrong with you altering your registry values. If you don't know what you're doing, then you should not do it. But that is why I have included registry tweaks in here. So the GPU tweak is a registry fix. You literally just open this up and run that, and it will fix the registry for you safely. If you want to see what's on this, you just right click and open it up in a notepad, and it will tell you exactly what it is. There's nothing dodgy in this pack. Guys, I wouldn't nuke you like that, seriously. The adware cleaner is a really helpful tool for getting the cookies of adwares that websites will basically place on your PC and clog up your PC with, and you know, remove it from your PC, so you don't have, you know, people, you know, basically spying on you at the end of the day. That's a great little tool. Malware Bytes, like it says, it's malware. It gets rid of any spyware, malware, Trojans that may be lurking. It's a really good sort of almost like an antivirus at the end of the day, but it doesn't run in real time unless you buy the pro version. All of these are free, by the way. You can download these free of charge. Some of them do have pro versions, which it's up to you if you want to get them. But Visual Studio Code is basically an enhanced notepad. So basically, if I right click on this and open with Visual Studio Code, you'll see that it's basically Notepad, but it's got a lot more features. It's kind of got some inbuilt stuff as well, you know, like line editing and stuff, and it's really helpful, especially if you create XML files for P3D. This is super helpful to have, and I highly recommend it. So that's been put in there, but it's an option. You don't have to download it. It isn't essential for the running of this pack. It's just something that I use. And again, one thing I have included is Windows Repair Toolkit, which is actually this item here. Basically, this is an app or a software tool which will prevent you from having to reinstall Windows. I see a lot of people and a lot of advice given from developers who go, well, I'll just do a fresh reinstallation of Windows. Oh yeah, mate, okay, yeah. I'll just uninstall the hundreds of add-ons I've got for flight simulation and remove all the programs from my PC and completely reinstall Windows just to fix a little glitch that I could probably fix without having to do that. It's kind of like the lazy way to fix your flight sim is just reinstall Windows, mate. And it's like, you don't really need to do that. I've never reinstalled Windows on a working PC because it's just unnecessary. If you don't go on illegal download sites, if you don't use torrent downloading software, or if you don't go anywhere dodgy and invite trouble into your PC, there's no reason why you should be reinstalling Windows on like a 6-monthly or yearly basis. It's just totally unnecessary. Unless Windows itself is corrupting itself, then maybe it's a good idea once a year to do a fresh reinstallation. But at the end of the day, if you're on top of your PC, you should never have to reinstall Windows. This tool prevents that. It basically fixes the operating system without having to reinstall it. It basically refreshes the Windows operating system back to its default state, and then you basically can go in and start updating it and, you know, doing everything again. It's a wonderful tool. It's actually prevented me from reinstalling my Windows operating system. So highly recommend that. These two here, these are totally optional. You don't have to get these, but I do highly recommend them. This is a great CPU tweaker. This helps you manage your CPU workload. And then this one is a defragger if you're using HD drives. This is a must. It's not like, you know, don't think, oh, I can't afford to buy that. These two are paywares though. So don't feel like you have to go out and buy it if you can't afford it. But if you have the ability to buy this, I would highly recommend it if you're running HD drives. Again, these are all free, and these have payware upgrades to the professional version, which it's totally up to you. It's not needed in this pack though. So basically you need to go down and download all of these things first, okay? Then once you've done that, we're basically opening up the steps to take file, and this is basically your ABC walkthrough guide, sorry, of what we're going to do now. So again, have me beside you when you're doing this, okay, and that way nothing can go wrong, because some of these things are pretty intricate. Some of these steps are actually disabling certain things that if you do it wrong, it's going to hurt your PC, okay? So first off, the first step is go download those free programs that I mentioned before. Nextly, you want to make sure your graphics card driver, your audio drivers, and Windows Update and any browsers you have are totally up to date first. Even the apps on your PC, okay? Now, a great way to check your apps on your PC is if you do have the professional version of CC Cleaner, you could actually get this to scan your PC and it will tell you if any of those apps are out of date. And that way you don't have to keep on going through all your apps and trying to figure that out for yourself. So basically, you run the scan, it's going to check your PC's entire health, but we are only looking for the apps, which is this one here, and it says 0 apps to update. Beautiful. My apps are all up to date. Now, it might not be a intensive app search, okay, but at the end of the day, it's a good place to start. The next thing is your Windows drivers, so Windows Update. So clicking the notification down here, clicking all settings, go to Windows and Updates, and it will basically tell you if you're up to date. You just click check for updates, and Windows will now check against its own index and see if you need any updates. I highly recommend you keeping your Windows as up to date as you possibly can. Now, you might click this Windows Update, and then an hour later it says, oh, by the way, we need an update. It's that fast at how things can change with Windows updates. They are slowing down at certain points of the year, and there's bigger updates than others, and some of them are even optional. Like this one here is an optional quality update. Unfortunately, because of what I've reset my PC to show you some things, and that has actually prevented this from downloading. So we'll see if this gets fixed after this, but making sure this is update. Also, make sure you change the active hours to the early hours of the morning when you're not using your PC, and it will then download the updates fresh for you when you wake up and start using your PC, rather than when you're coming on a final approach into LA and suddenly it goes, we need to restart your PC because of a Windows update, and you've been getting bad performance this whole time. And you know why? It's because Windows has been doing stuff in the background. And that's really what this whole Adam experience thing is all about, is preventing Windows from doing things in the background whilst you're using your flight simulator, okay? Another thing here is the advanced options tab. Make sure you tick receive updates for the other Microsoft products. This will keep all your other Microsoft add-ons that you do use up to date, okay? But turn off all the other notifications and stuff like that. None of that is needed. And if you really wanted to, like if you were going to be doing like a week's worth or a few days worth of intensive flight simulation, and you're like, you know what, my PC is running really smooth now, and sometimes Windows updates can actually destroy your system and really like corrupt on download or corrupt on installation, or actually be unbeneficial to your flight simulator. You can actually pause your update system for 7 days at a time, and this is super helpful if you say, especially if you're a streamer and you want to do like a week's or a few days worth of flight simming and you don't want your PC to suddenly change on you. You can pause your updates and it won't do anything about Windows updates while that is active. You can even remove it within those days. It doesn't like lock it for 7 days and you can't do anything. So that is a really good, helpful feature. And just a little quick one as well. If you ever do install an update and it completely destroys your flight sim's performance and you're like, oh, this update isn't good for flight sim, you can if you want, but it's not really recommended. But you can uninstall updates by clicking the uninstall updates, check what date it got installed on, and then removing that update and restarting your PC, and then coming back in here and pausing updates for 7 days to prevent it from re-downloading it to your PC. Probably best to do that before you uninstall it. But make sure your Windows is fully up to date. Also make sure your graphics card drivers are up to date. So for me, basically I use NVIDIA, so I use the GeForce experience to tell me if I've got any drivers that need updating. Here we do have one. Usually you just click check for updates, but here we have got a driver that does need updating. Now, one thing to note about drivers, if you're not having any performance issues with your GPU and a driver update comes along, sometimes it's not beneficial to your flight simulator. I would say update your driver, right, when you have a series of add-ons that also update, when your simulator updates, or if you're experiencing issues. Don't rush to get the latest updates, because sometimes they actually hurt your simulator as opposed to fix things. So if you're having issues, by all means, go get that update, but kind of hold back a few days if you're not having any issues whatsoever, because you may not need to update. You know, the updates might not even apply to anything you're using, but it could change how you use it. So but I would never recommend using GeForce to actually even just download the updates. Okay, I would actually recommend going to the NVIDIA website itself and downloading the driver straight from the horse's mouth. So literally NVIDIA drivers, download drivers, and then basically, you know, fill out your details here. Now there are two different types of drivers to get. You've got the game ready driver, the studio driver. You're like, well, which one should I get? If you're a gamer, if you're using flight simulation, or if you are just a general use PC, the game ready driver is the one you're going to want to get. If you're a developer and you use developer tools, if you have Adobe Photoshop or Adobe Premiere and you're a video editor, or you're a photographer, or you're any sort of that type of industry, you know, that's the way you use your PC, then really you need to get the studio driver. They're both technically the same, but they just, the way they utilize the resources on your PC is what's different. So gamers get the game ready driver and developers get the studio driver. Do a search and basically download straight to your hard drive the GeForce game ready driver, and then go and get DDU, which is a uninstaller for graphics drivers, the display driver uninstaller. Get it directly from their website, and basically it's not this one, it's down here somewhere, and download it from their website. Basically this will remove your graphics card in a safe boot mode, okay, rather than just in a normal mode where it might go wrong. This actually removes issues from problems with updates, but don't disconnect. It says here you must disconnect. I would recommend not to disconnect your internet, because something I found out quite recently is that the NVIDIA control panel, and obviously this is specific to NVIDIA users, but you can still use DDU if you are an AMD user. But for NVIDIA users, this control panel is no longer included inside the driver update. This comes separately from the Microsoft Store as you're installing your driver. Okay, so one or two schools of thought here. You could either disconnect your internet and then safely install your driver and know that nothing else is going in as well, or you could keep your internet active, installed as normal with DDU, and you will get your control panel at the same time. If you do disconnect, when you restart your PC, which is what you should always do when you install your new driver, a little notification will come up here to say you need to go get that control panel, and then you'll actually go to the Microsoft App Store and download the NVIDIA control panel and install it. Like, that way might be safer, but the way I do it is literally just, you know, using DDU, put my PC in a safe boot mode using the Windows repair tool, which is easier than going to the back end and doing it through there, and then installing or uninstalling, then installing my graphics card driver. So once you're sure that everything on your PC is now up to date, okay, and obviously if you've just reinstalled your entire Windows operating system, these steps will probably be not needed, but go through them anyway. The next thing we need to do is, now that we know that there's no app on your PC that's going to be nuking you, we now need to check your hardware to make sure that is running correctly, and the Windows operating system itself, to make sure that there's no errors going to occur in our future steps. So go into the search bar down here and open up a command prompt by typing in CMD and run that as administrator. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually get the Windows operating system to check itself against itself. There is like a clean operating system copy on your hard drive, and we're actually going to get it to check its own operating system for any errors. So literally the command prompt I've actually put down here. This is what you need to type in, so you can easily just highlight it and then click, push Control C to copy it, and then come across here and, you know, just literally tick on the top bar here and then click Control V, and it will paste it in, and then hit enter. Now, this on a healthy, fast machine should only take a couple of minutes, like 3 minutes max. If this takes longer than 10 minutes, your PC is probably not suited for current flight simulation. Okay, because this is totally dependent, by the way, on the speed of your system. So, you know, my operating system here, like you can see the CPU's gone up a little bit because it's now, you know, sorting out this scan. But if this scan takes you 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes to complete, your PC might not be up to scratch. So this is a good way to test if your PC is good for flight simulation. I'm not saying you can't run flight simulation on there, but I'm saying you could do so much better by increasing your hardware specs for current flight simulation. Now, as this completes, what we're going to do is, one thing I've noticed is I could run this now and it could say no violations. I could run it in an hour and it could say, oh yeah, by the way, we found some violations. And it's like, well, what happened in the hour? I only was using my PC. Like, Windows does so much behind the scenes without you actually realizing it. It actually goes through quite a lot of checks and downloading, sometimes even behind your back. It literally does quite a lot without you knowing it, and you can actually check to see how badly it's doing it by looking at your hard drive. Now, obviously my hard drive is up and down because this scan is happening, but when this scan finishes, my hard drive here should not be still maxing out to 100% like this unless Windows is actually doing something in the background as well. If you constantly see your hard drives maxing out at 100%, it's because Windows is doing something, and more often than not, you can actually see it in a process here. If you basically tick name and then look for one called system interrupts, and you'll only find that when you click name and you scroll down to the bottom for the Windows systems here, and you'll see system interrupts here. So highlight it and click CPU and then scroll all the way back up to the top. You'll see it. Now, this usually idles between 0.1 to 1%. It never rises above 1% when it's just doing nothing. Now, system interrupts is always doing something. He's basically a little twat with a clipboard, running around like a headless chicken, making sure the entire operating system is behaving like it should in terms of its recall information. So, you know, he makes sure that things are happening as they should. And if this thing goes up to 20% on a constant, you know, all the time, then he's actually activating something. He's actually logging, making logs and checking it twice and doing things that basically, well, there's something wrong on your system. You know, he's addressing issues on your system. So basically what you need to do is find out what those issues are, because he is basically your key dude in telling you if there's something wrong. As you can see, he's idling to 0.1%. I've got no issues on my PC. That's why. And now that the scan has now finished, this is returned down to 0%. So I highly recommend running this scan 3 times in a row. And if it says no violations after 3 times, then you are good to go. If it actually does find any errors, it will fix them for you automatically, and you won't have to worry. This little scan now tool is super handy in keeping your operating system healthy, you know, so it doesn't error, because it's so easy where it can, through Windows updates, the things you install, or even just general usage. So that little scan tells you that your PC operating system is running healthy, and it's just an average, really. Now, another thing we can do before we do the next step is have a look at our processes here and just watch the CPU. watch the memory, watch the hard drives and your GPU at idle state when you're not actually doing anything to your PC. None of this really should go above 10% at all. If this is maxing out at 20, 30, 40%, you've got something going on in your PC that's taking performance away from your flight simulator. There's something extra happening, because an idling graphics card, although mine is actually recording this video, so I'm actually surprised this doesn't go any higher, but an idling graphics card, an idling hard drive, an idling CPU doesn't actually increase its usage unless something is needing that source to increase it with. So in other words, if you've got scans going on in the background, if you've got things trying to repair itself, if you've got additional performance killers at the end of the day happening, then it's not good for your flight simulator. And creating a streamlined PC for flight simulation is what we're about here. So it's a sign basically that you need to do something. Okay, so where are we up to here? So we've made sure everything is completely scanned and cleaned. Now we're basically, the second step is monitor PC performance with a quick stress test of either watching your specs at idle or playing a video file. So let's go find a quick and nasty video file just to quickly play. One of these will do, just a flight simulation one, and clocking what your PC is doing during the playing of that video. So as it's playing, my CPU is going up to 17%, my hard drive is, you know, still under 10, my graphics card has spiked to 15, and that's it really. There's nothing like it's the video itself. Okay, you know, the video itself isn't choppy because of my system can't handle it. It's playing perfectly fine. It's not having issues recalling the information from the hard drive, or, you know, placing the video in the memory, or the CPU and GPU actually displaying this. If these values go up super high, then you've either got very low grade hardware that could be improved, or you've got things again going on in the background that, you know, you could improve on. Again, I gotta apologize for the length of this video. You know, the reason it's going to be so long is because we're actually going into a lot of detail, and I didn't want to chop this up into multiple videos for you have to watch them, but make it to where you could come back to it and just do this step by step, maybe once a day. None of this is, you've got to do it all in one go. Okay, so you can always come back to this video if you've watched too much of me ramble on, but doing each step will give you the PC that I've got basically for flight simulation. So the next thing we need to do is run a system clean using CC Cleaner. Now, CC Cleaner, by the way, is a brilliant little app. And one thing I'd recommend before continuing from this point on, because now this point on we're actually going to be getting into things and changing registry files. So go into the registry, and you want to basically scan for issues, and this basically checks the registry of your system and make sure that there's no missing entries, deleted software that's left the installer path behind, or any Windows services that no longer are used and they've still left their registries behind. This basically gets rid of unused registry items. Click Fix Selected Issues and make a backup of your registry now, because if you want to return your PC to the state it was before you watched my video, this is how you would do it. So you click yes, it asks you to save it to a location, which is most likely going to be in Documents. Click Save, and that is done now. Fixed issue, that's now fixed that one issue that I had. And if you've got millions of issues, this is probably an indication of why your PC is acting like a potato right now. A clean system won't have any errors in its registry. There'll always be one or two, but not hundreds. Once you've done that, if you ever want to return your PC back to the state it was, you know, you can basically run that registry, and that registry that you just saved will return to you when you do that, once you restart your PC. Now, moving forward to step 4, I've done this kind of so you can cherry pick. Okay, so basically, we're going to run a script here which is going to debloat Windows completely. It's going to remove a lot of resources that run in the background that you don't need to use for flight simulation. That just basically removes, you know, performance from your PC for your flight simulator. Now, you may not want to run this script because at the end of the day, we're going to be opening up a command prompt. There's two ways you can do this. You can either open up run as administrator command prompt, and in here type PowerShell, because it needs to be a administrative PowerShell command, and then it will say PSC, and that's what you're looking for. Or if you right click on the Windows icon down here and actually Windows PowerShell admin, this is the one we're actually going to be running. So this is what you actually need to have, the blue background one, but again, you know, it's not essential. So basically what you're going to do is, again, there's two different ways you can do this. If you don't want to do what I'm doing right now, you can actually do the other thing, which is I've included the Debloat separate items in here. So basically these are the processes it's going to disable, which you can actually do by hand. None of these, by the way, are used in flight simulation. Okay, these are all on your system running though, and it's just a case of disabling them. You're not removing them, you're just disabling them, because you don't need them running, taking performance away from your PC. Also, uninstalling Edge. I don't use Microsoft Edge, and it forced itself onto my PC, and I don't really like that, so I want to remove it. So there is a separate command where you literally just run the command as an administrator, and then it will remove Edge once you restart your PC. And the same for Cortana. Cortana is basically a assistant to your PC that continually does stuff in the background that will nuke your performance. You can get rid of her. You can disabling her or uninstalling her. But if you get a Windows update, these will come back. And the same with this Debloat service that we're about to run, they will come back. If you're curious as to what is in this Debloat service, just highlight this script here, Control C to copy it, highlight the blue background and Control V to paste it, and then click enter. It's going to bring a pop-up up here. And it's this UI, which is what we're going to use. Now, here it's got disable Cortana, and it's got disable the Edge PDF takeover, and uninstall OneDrive. I uninstalled OneDrive from my machine because I don't use it. I still have access to OneDrive through a browser, so if I need to send files or retrieve files, I can still do that. It's just OneDrive is not going to be on my system clogging up and, you know, copying files and taking them here, taking them there. I don't really use OneDrive that much, to be honest, so I don't really want it on my system. Unpin tiles from the start menu. You know, basically when you click the start menu, you've got all this rubbish here. Basically you're removing all of this so we can customize it later. And then removing the registry keys. Now, if you literally click remove all bloatware, it's going to do everything here, okay, automatically. And to be honest, maybe not so best. You can always revert everything here. So once you do it, you can go, I don't like this, and go back. Or you can customize a blacklist, which is what we're going to do. Basically, you can cherry pick what you want to remove. So basically, I want to only, let's see, I use the calculator, so I don't want that removed. I use the Windows Store, so I don't want that removed. I don't use Windows Photos. I don't use that. I use the Xbox app, but the overlay I do not use. Sticky notes, no thank you. MS Paint, no. Windows Camera, we will leave that. .NET, we will leave that. Bing, we don't need that, no. We don't need the help, messaging, 3D, Microsoft Office Hub, Solitaire, Speed Test, News, Office, Lens, OneNote. I mean, none of this is needed. Remote desktop. That's everything. So we're going to save that. There we go. That's that saved. And then basically it's we've customized the blacklist. Now we can disable Cortana, which we can do just by clicking that. Stop Edge PDF takeover, uninstall OneDrive, unpin tiles from the start menu, disable telemetry tasks, remove bloatware reg keys, and then remove bloatware with customize blacklist. And basically it's going to be running these commands as we're doing it now. And there you go, it's starting to do it. Now again, running through this, it's going to take a while. You just have to be patient. It depends on how fast your PC is. It's got a lot to do. Remember, it's removing everything from the bloatware and then every single one of these that we ticked. Now the enable dark mode is an optional thing. I actually have enabled dark mode myself already, so I haven't ticked it here. But if you go into your backend and click all settings, and it's how everything is black, that is the dark mode. You can actually do that through the backend yourself, which is why I haven't done it, but you can disable it and enable it here. And the install.net through 3.5, you guys have most likely already got that on your system, so you won't need to install that. Literally the things that I ticked are the things that I do, that I have ticked. But again, you don't, you know, it depends on how fast your system is to how quickly this will complete. For me, it took 5 minutes. I did stop the video and restarted it again, but look, it's already finished now. That is done. So basically what you need to do now, close everything down and restart your PC. So before or after you restart your PC, whichever one, the next step we're going to do is run the shut up 10 program. So basically just run that as an administrator. Now it's going to pop up a UI, and you can do all settings or only recommended settings. So if you click that, it doesn't change anything. It just slides some of these down. But the best thing to do is go through this yourself. Okay, so privacy, we disabled basically quite a lot of the privacy one. But in terms of like recordings, yes, a lot of OneDrive. Probably don't want to do that. So once, yeah, basically this is all good. Yes. So there's a lot of options, obviously. Once you do that, you accept changes, and that is done. The other one, we need to restart our PC. So I shall come back once we've done that. Okay, so restarted the PC now. We're back here, and you might actually see a improvement in your hard drive space. You might actually see it actually clear off some space. It really depends on what you've removed. Again, you could just remove everything if you wanted to, but you can cherry pick there what you want. Now, when you come back, best to open up your task manager and note and to see if anything's happening. And to be honest, something is happening here. You can check the CPU usage here. That shouldn't be utilizing that much CPU. If we have a look at what is nuking our CPU the most, Windows Search Indexer. Now that is basically an indexing search engine on your PC that basically logs the location of every single file on that particular drive. In fact, that is the very next step we're going to address, because this thing here, as you can see, is taking 20% of my CPU power for this indexing routine job. We don't want that from happening. Honestly, this will index the entire C drive and D drive and everything drive if it was allowed to. So that is the next thing we need to address, because I don't want my hard drives indexed at the end of the day. It's an unnecessary thing. It's only done for speed of recalling information. It's not actually like Flight Simulator essential. So here we go. We've uninstalled Cortana, the Edge, and all that. That's the one we've done. So now we need to disable resource management. So basically, I've put a file here called resource management disabled, telling you how you can bring that menu up. Resource management is basically a program on your PC that fixes and like addresses problems and fixes them on the fly. Now, it can take away performance from your flight simulator. It's not something we want for our flight simulator because it can actually alter and change files that you're actively using and cause a lot of problems. So the best way to do it, if you hold the Windows button down and click X, you'll bring up this here. And if you click Run, or you could get that by clicking the Windows button and R, basically type in what it says here, gpedit .msc, and this is going to bring up an interface where we can actually remove that policy from happening. Now, again, this is getting into things, you know, that at the end of the day, Windows wants on your system, so it's totally optional if you still want to keep this and you don't want to be able to change it or disable it. But at the end of the day, I highly recommend you do that. Now, I've put a file in here on how you can actually get to it. So computer configuration, we want to go to administrative templates, system, troubleshooting and diagnostics. There it is. And then click on that and you'll see Windows resource exhaustion detection and resolution. Okay, so highlighting that will bring up this here, and you click on scenarios execution level and it'll say what policy setting it has. Now it tells you exactly here what it is. Click on policy setting and you'll get this pop up. Now I've disabled it in mine. It will be enabled in yours. There's two ways you can do this, okay, if it's enabled or if it's in the non-configured mode. When enabled, you can actually choose to detect and troubleshoot only with no resolution, okay, or you can leave it in a not configured state, or you can do what I do and just completely disable it. Click apply and OK. Now that is disabled. Again, this basically helps detect issues on the fly and you basically fix them on the fly. It's something we don't want happening though. It's something that is going against flight simulation and it can actually cause problems. I've had this turned off for months and no ill effect. So next thing we want to do now is basically, like we saw in our thingy here, this indexing thing, which we don't want happening. We want to address that. So basically go to view and bring up options. And I personally, this will basically choose, I choose to open my Window Explorer in a PC. Yours will say quick access, but I don't want that. I want it to, when I bring up a Windows box, I want it to come up to this screen and not my quick access. So I basically untick, you know, these two, clear that off. And then in search, we don't want to use an index here. So basically in my PC, make sure you untick this box here, or sorry, make sure you tick this box, sorry. And also include system directories. We don't want them indexing. We don't want them compressing, anything like that. There are tick boxes in here you can have, but there are a couple that you really want, which is launch folder as a separate Windows, restore previous Windows at login. That's kind of helpful, but not necessary. I actually want to see thumbnails, so but it basically, ticking that box will give you a massive performance increase, but I actually do want to see my, you know. Also, we want to is hide protected. Basically, you don't want anything hidden in your system. Just make sure that's ticked, and that is basically everything there. Oh, the main one you want to do is show hidden files, folders, and drives. So we click apply to that. Clear. That's fine. Yeah. I've already done that. So basically, you know, you do not want, basically, if you click on properties, it will say here, compress or allow files to be indexed. You do not want those ticked. Basically, remove that option. And that way, the PC will never start to suddenly start indexing your PC. So yeah, apply it to all the sub changes. Click continue. Yeah, certain files, by the way, will not allowed to be non-indexed. Okay, and just simply wait for all that to finish and click OK. Some files, some system Windows files it won't allow you to. You won't have access to. So just OK on that. That's fine. Literally, it only takes a couple of seconds to sort of change the policies on this drive. Depending on how much information you have and depending on how big the drive is, it could take anything up to 15 minutes. Again, all this is basically it creates index continually all the time of locations of files for easy retrieval. That is it. But at the end of the day, that continual indexing, A, takes up resources of your PC, and B, is kind of a waste of time, because we are telling our flight simulator very specifically where you can find these locations. So this index thing, which now has stopped, is no longer needed, really, and just takes performance away at the end of the day. Now, the best use of this package is on a fresh installation of Windows. You can run this, though, even like myself, if you have P3D or your flight simulator still installed. But the best use of it is when you have a fresh installation of Windows, and you're not really having a lot of some of these things pop up like this. Now, the next thing to do is complete this indexing step, because one thing you'll find more often than not is these tick boxes can actually return. Windows can actually reactivate. So it's best just to double check them. Now, the next step to complete this indexing is to remove the indexing that's already taken place. The best way to do this is to head into Control Panel with the small icons and find the indexing options and bring this up. Now, this is going to basically include all the locations where the indexing has already taken place. We want to modify this and we want to remove these locations. So basically untick it there and any other tick boxes there, and it will remove those locations where it's already been indexed, because we don't want any of these in here. Documents is being done. There we go. That is it. Now show me all the locations, please. And again, if there's any in here that they will say, which none of these do, so that is cool. Clicking. So as you can see, it's already starting to do this indexing thing. So basically, you want to go in here and remove any entries you see down here. And if you do see one, click on here and remove it. Show me all locations. Do the same thing here. Make sure that there's nothing there. And then click into advanced and basically delete and rebuild the index. Click OK, and it'll basically go through, delete what it's already done, but start again creating a single index based off its modifiers in this section, which is nothing. And we can close that down, and that's now not going to run again, and that is fine. Right, so the next thing now we've done that is basically we want to enable permissions now for every drive. Now this is where people are going to start probably commenting down below. You're going to be saying, oh, you're telling everybody to open their computer up to cyber attacks, viruses and all this. Basically what I do is I allow the permissions of everyone on my PC, and nothing else. As you can see, there's nothing else down there. On my D drive, which is basically I do it on my flight simulation drives, and this basically removes the chance that something's going to go wrong. You see all these here? So basically we want to remove these by clicking edit, click on there and click remove the system. If there isn't everyone there, all they don't need to be there. Make sure these boxes are all ticked, apply. Now sometimes it'll say, I'm sorry, but you don't have access to do that. That's fine. I do expect that is normal for that to happen, but majority of a clean drive won't have anything, and it won't have to do this, which is basically go through the entire drive and remove those permissions. Now, the reason I do this is because if I install something or if I run something, I want it to have the permission within my drives and not to be blocked by a system or an installer or anything like that. And with flight simulation, especially if you're networking or you've got your weather system going off on another drive, permissions is a crucial thing. Everything needs to have permissions, but at the end of the day, you don't need everything here, like authenticated users and all that. This is unnecessary, you know. So basically remove that and just give everyone the permission to do what they need. Now, at the end of the day, this is only safe if you don't go on, you know, illegal downloaded websites, or if you hack pirated software. Basically, if you invite trouble in. I'm going to tell you something now, which I know people are going to have a go at me for, but viral software, antivirus software, is a big load of baloney, okay? You do not need any antivirus on your PC if you don't go on illegal downloaded websites, because your router has a firewall, okay? Your internet provider also has a firewall. Internet providers do not want viruses reaching their customers and completely nuking them, okay? They have their own firewall built in. Your router has a firewall built in. You do not need to add another layer of complication to access flight simulation folders by allowing, you know, antivirus software, because that's one of the biggest ball aches in flight simulation. Don't forget to put your exclusions in your Windows or your antivirus software, otherwise this program won't run properly. Yeah, you don't need to do all that. If everyone's got permission, okay, then everyone's going to get access to folders and everyone's going to be able to do it. Now, if you go around on dodgy sites, this is actually perhaps opening yourself up to something. Don't go on those dodgy sites and you're going to be okay. All right. Seriously, you don't need antivirus software. Your router has a firewall that is absolutely adequate, okay, and good enough to run. Totally. All right. All we're doing is basically allowing everyone to access everything. So basically making sure that you do it on all your drives, okay, and also making sure that the share here, that it's shared as well. By clicking that and just ticking that, you can even see who has permissions. So everyone's got permissions there. That's brilliant. And we could look at the D drive. Oh gosh, we don't want to rename that now. Click on the D drive, which is the one we're doing right now. So we can't actually do that because that's happening in process. Making sure that, I mean, for exterior drives, you don't really need to do that for exterior drives. But so that's okay. We go to sharing, advanced. I don't really need to share because this is an exterior drive, but basically what you want to do is the drives that you do have, pardon me, the drives that you do have for flight simulation. So for the F drive, I don't use that for flight simulation. That's a storage drive. It doesn't need to be shared, but the security for everyone to access it does. Okay, my G drive needs to be shared because that does have flight simulation stuff on there. So that one I will make sure I've got ticked and that everyone has got full permissions to use. And the same with my D drive. You know, my C, D, G, they're the ones. Everything else, basically, I don't actually need to share because they're external drives that only really need the permissions to access. And that is it. You know, like here, these aren't needed. We can remove that. Also, if you have downloaded a virus on your system, some of the times they actually put their own permissions in so they can access stuff on your PC, and you're actually removing that anyway, even if they did do that. But at the end of the day, if you don't do, like, no one's attacking you from within your home, okay? Like, your mom's not upstairs on the PC trying to hack in to your PC, okay? So no one's going to be attacking you within your own network, Okay, the only thing that's going to attack is going to occur is from outside your network, the internet. And if you go onto a site that invites trouble in, you downloading executables, that's when you open yourself up, because you're inviting that in. At the end of the day, I go on a lot of freeware sites for flight simulation. I down executables, but I make sure that they are legit and safe and not illegal, you know? And that is basically it. This one doesn't need to be shared. That's cool. So, right, that's the permissions done now. Basically, indexing scanning options for other drives need to be removed and rebuilt, which is the one thing I think I showed you. But if we do it for the D drive, oh, how did that pop up? Get rid of that. Yeah. So basically making sure that these are unticked here, and when you go up to view, like let's say we go into this one and we go to options, making sure that that's done that, and also the back end of the control panel for indexing options is also, see, we don't want anything here basically being indexed. Beautiful. That is that done. Now, get rid of that one. Basically now we need to run the included programs except the Windows repair tool. So adware cleaner, we're going to run that and basically scan for anything dodgy on here. It's free. You click scan now. It looks through your entire PC and says, oh yeah, you've got some dodgy stuff on here, or you haven't. And this all should come back as 0. Now, if it does find, yeah, no items were detected, that's fine. We don't want to run a basic repair and reset the WinSock because I have a clean system, but I'd advise you to run the basic repair and reset your WinSock and then restart your PC. So there we go. Now, because I have Malwarebytes already installed, I can literally click that and it'll open up Malwarebytes and we can do a scan. Now, Malwarebytes is absolutely free to scan and use on its basic, but if you want to activate the license and upgrade to premium, you will get real-time protection, which is completely unnecessary, guys. You don't need the pro version of this. Having real-time protection means you've got more processes running in your PC than you actually need to have happened. Again, if you don't invite trouble in, there's no reason why this needs to be actively scanning your system on the fly as you're trying to fly to try and get the latest threats that are going to be coming in. You haven't invited anything in. There's no threats going to suddenly appear on your PC. Okay. So we can close down adware now. There we go. There's CC Cleaner. Now, basically what we're going to do is we're going to do a complete check here. So the registry we've already done. So what we're going to do basically now is we're going to run the tools section here, and we're going to basically click the startup menu. So you're going to see loads of things here. You're going to see loads of things here, and scheduled tasks and Windows services. Now, we're going to be going through this in a moment after the scan's finished. But for the Windows, the startup programs, when your PC starts up, and you can actually see the startup in the task manager under startup, your PC will start up with a load of apps that start up as well. There we go. He's finished. He hasn't found anything, so beautiful. That's done. We can exit out of that, and we can also exit from him. We don't need him running all the time. You don't need everything running all the time. So basically, when your PC starts, it starts with a load of apps as well. Now, we don't want apps starting up with Windows, because at the end of the day, we can activate them when we need them to run. So I do recommend going into the task manager to start up, disable everything you can see there. If there is something you do want running, you can enable it or you can keep it be. Same with the startup here with CC. Basically remove all that. You don't need any of that. Again, you can select what you want to see in the context menu, which is basically when you right click, you have a load of options, or when you right click on a file, again, you have a load of options that you can adjust and play with. And, like I don't want certain things on here, so I'll remove it. So looking down here, I can't actually see anything that I do want removed. I mean, Malwarebytes, I'll disable that one. but that's basically it. Everything here I actually do use, so that is fine. Scheduled tasks. Now, I've got a memory fix thing that we're going to do in a moment, and you know that should be here. But here, at the end of the day, you don't really need like updating tasks running. Disable that. You could run the updates yourself every now and again. Therefore, you don't need these things starting when you start your PC up. It only literally, disable that, slows down the load up time, but also at the end of the day, if you're not going to be using it in PC simulation, flight simulation, why do you need it running on your PC? You know. So that's basically everything. We've done the context, Windows services. Basically, as you can see, a lot has been disabled through running that Debloater script thing. You can go through it separately as well. There is another video that I did talks more specifically about those processes being disabled. I recommend going to check that out. Right, moving on to the next one. We've basically we've done the index scanning and other drives. We removed selected locations and rebuilt it. Run the included programs. That's what we're up to. So the included programs were CC Cleaner, Adware, Malware Bytes. We've done that. We don't need to run the Windows Repair Toolkit, but if you do have problems, I suggest you do run it. Now we need to basically go in and start playing with our back settings. And the first thing we're going to do, bring up the icons here, the categories, go into user accounts. And again, this is going to be a questionable things. Some people are going to say to you, don't do this, but for me, there's absolutely no need to have this set to high, because it means, all it means is that when you do something, you get a sort of a pop-up to say, do you want to do this? Now, if like this, basically, if you are the only one making changes on your PC, you don't need to be notified about it, but it can be useful if you do get viruses that you've introduced into the system that you've asked to come on here. I find it a ball ache. I don't have anything dodgy on my PC, so therefore I disable it. That one is totally up to you. You don't have to do that. Right. Next thing we're going to do is performance. So we go into system, and we go into system, and we scroll down to advanced system settings. And all of our fixes now are going to be done on here. So performance, click on performance, and what you want to do is click adjust for best performance, and it will remove all the tick boxes from here, and then customize and just click enable peak, show thumbnails. That's a, you know, I like that, but if you do remove that, it will give you a bit of a performance jump. And smooth edges of screen fonts, click apply. That's that one done. Make sure your data execution is turned on for Windows Program Services. And now go to advanced and make sure you choose the best performance for your programs, not for Windows itself. And go back here. Now, untick automatically manage paging files. And if you've got a HD drive like I have here, you want to do a custom size thing of your own if you have the space for it, which I don't really do have the space for it, so I'm not going to do it. But if you have the space, like you have 50 gig of free space, you could actually create some extra performance by setting up a virtual memory caching on your hard drive. And basically it's totally dependent on what's already on your system. So if we have a look at my system, I have got 32 gig of installed RAM. So the initial size here is going to be 32 plus 1.5 times of what I have, so 45 gig of RAM. So it's in megabytes. So then the maximum is 4 times that amount. So if I bring up my calculator and I go 32 times 4, 128,000 megabytes. There we go. There's one too many there, isn't there? 45 gig. So 45 gig of memory at there, and then we set that. And for this hard drive, there is paging size allowance for performance, and it basically does that. If you've got an SSD drive, this is not needed. Just click no paging file. Or if you want to, you could click system manage size and let it do it. Unfortunately, there's not enough space left. You do need space on your drive in order for it to happen though. So set that and Windows will automatically do that. But again, if you haven't got the space, it ain't worth it. But definitely if you're running an M2 or an SSD, you don't need this. But if you're running a HD drive, you customize the virtual memory yourself by looking at how much memory you do have installed, adding 1.5 to that. So if you've got 16 gig, you're looking at like 25 as your minimum, and then 4 timesing it for your maximum. And you will see a massive performance increase when you do that. Click OK. It's going to say you need to restart your PC. That is fine. We are pretty much done in this menu here. The next menu is system protection. Now, at the end of the day, every time you load up your PC or you make a change to it, Windows is logging that and creating restore points. Okay, I actually disable my restore points. This has actually been turned back on. But if you do, you can set it up yourself by clicking system restore. But I actually disable system protection. System protection is a bit of a misleading name because it's not protection. It's a restore point. So let's say if I suddenly run into a problem where, yesterday it was working fine, but today it's working like dog shit. So you can actually roll your computer back to yesterday internally. It won't touch your personal files, it's just the Windows files, and therefore you can either remove a glitch that is happening, or you can get back to an early time when things were working. Now at the end of the day, it's beneficial to have this as a backup, okay? But if you leave this enabled, your PC is continually checking you and everything you do and making logs and creating these system restore points every day. It's totally unneeded. You can come in here yourself, turn this on, and create a system restore point once a week, then turn it off, and you will still then have those points on your PC when things do go wrong. It's basically an insurance job more than protection racket. So at the end of the day, I don't have that many troubles on my PC. Like, okay, I'll have like a GPU problem or a memory problem sometimes, or a CPU problem, but I can fix those myself, and I don't need Mr. Know-it-all here doing it. So we're going to restart later. Those steps there will dramatically increase the performance, not only of your simulator, but just of your PC itself, okay? Now, the next thing we need to do is task scheduling. So type in the word task and open the task scheduler. And if you, I have got in here a little memory tweak of mine, which basically flushes the memory every 5 minutes, which is here, empty memory, and you don't need to run it if it's already triggered to happen every 5 minutes for the rest of time. So I don't actually need to keep running this, but I can come back in here and enable it. I have put it in here, the memory tweak and how you do it, how you set it up. Basically, this just flushes the cache memory every 5 minutes. It really does help to keep a tip-top system. My memory cache, this can build up to like 3 gig, 10 gig if you let it. This will never get above 500 megabytes because it gets flushed every 5 minutes. Memory can clog up and it can actually lock your system if it gets corrupted, so and bring it down, and you have to replace all your memory again. So this thing really does help to keep a consistently running system. And when you combine it with my GPU tweak for crashes in the DXGI, and then combine it with the CPU fix as well, which is here, a separate video. I'll show you how to do that. Honestly, your system is going to be a beast for simulation, okay? Now, there are other things happening here, as you can see, other triggered tasks that are happening. And okay, process lasso starts at the beginning when I run my PC. That's fine. I also have Windows repair running. I don't actually need that, so I'm going to delete that. I don't need that starting up. OneDrive, you shouldn't be there. You can do one. Obviously, my graphics card starts up. Yes, that's great. MSI Afterburner, if I'm gaming, I will run this, but if I'm flight simming, I don't. So yes, that can start up when it logs up. Microsoft Edge can do one. I've deleted you off my system, so I definitely don't need you getting involved with your updating system. Delete those. Intel, that's for the CPU. I don't really sure what that is, so I will leave it. It doesn't tell me. A recertification. I will leave that. Google Update. Now, at the end of the day, you can trigger these yourself if you wanted to. These have multiple triggers defined. It obviously keeps Google up to date. It's probably advisable to leave this running, but at the end of the day, we don't need it triggering as often as it does. It triggers every day and every hour. Man, that's quite a lot. To be honest, we don't really need that. So I'm going to edit that, to be honest. So we can basically come in here and select properties and the triggers itself. Edit that so it doesn't happen every hour. That's insane. Maybe we'll run it every day. So, oh, you can only do it like that. Okay. Right. Well, we don't need it happening. So, repeat. I think I just want it. Yeah, daily. I don't want to repeat it every hour, but just happen daily. And we're going to start it. Recur one every day. Enable, yeah, just once a day basically. That's all it needs to happen. It doesn't need to happen every hour. That's insane, to be honest, for that to be happening every hour. Multiple triggers, log on, and then every day. That's perfect. That's great. Create Explorer, I don't really know what that is. I'm going to leave it. Skip the UAC for the updates. To be honest, I don't really need that. I can, when I open that, I can see that it will update, so I don't actually need that to be in there. So I'm going to delete that. Again, if you don't know what you're doing here, you should not be doing anything. All we're doing is we're stopping tasks that get scheduled, like Adobe Acrobat. I can't even talk. Adobe Acrobat update doesn't need to be triggering itself with, like, look at that. It triggers like almost every day, and that I can actually update that myself. You know what I mean? I don't need this to be, you know. So get rid of them. I'll update it and I'll do it when I want it to. So basically, there's nothing triggering here that I don't know about at the end of the day. So that's that done. And I highly recommend you doing the memory tweak. Okay, all it is basically is this program here. The video guide on how you do it is here, and again, it flushes the memory every 5 minutes, and it shows you how to create that task scheduler in there to create a task schedule of every 5 minutes. It really does help. So we've disabled the startup programs using Task Manager now, as well as that. There is one more thing that we need to do, because now it's time to go into the back end. Okay. And I think I'm going to save the customizing the start tiles. So basically I've removed all my start tiles, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to, put all my icons on my desktop in my startup tile thing here. And I think you can just literally do it by right clicking, I believe, and then pinning or dropping all these shortcuts into that thing. So yeah, pin to start. So basically my P3D file, I can pin to start, and now it should be here. And basically I don't need this here. I can basically bin it, and it should now still trigger. from that location. So all of these icons can now be removed off my screen, and they'll all be here how I want them to be, you know. So anyway, let's go into the back end. Basically, we're now going to make sure we're configured for flight simulation. So we're going to start with system. We're literally going to be going through every single one of these, okay? And remember, this is all done for flight simulation. So the first one is display. We're going to make sure we have the correct color profile for calibration. We're going to make sure that our HD color settings are correct. I use a HDR, yes. It is activated, yes. And you can set the brightness level yourself. If you don't have HDR, that won't be available to you. Make sure you're using the correct screen scale layout. I've got a 4K monitor, so I use the 200% option. Make sure your display resolution, the recommended one, is there. Make sure everything here is correct. Advanced display settings, again, I've got my 12-bit high HDR activated. Beautiful. And that's everything here. Go down to sound. Make sure you actually click, rather than having it default, which one you use. I actually have disabled everything on my PC. So if we go into sound here, I want to quickly run through this so it's not a giant video, but I basically disabled all my outputs except for the two that I use. So my headphones, which are the speakers, and my microphone, which is the one I'm talking to right now, they're the only two active ones. And this really helps to prevent confusion within apps. When there's only one to choose from, they default to that, and you don't have to worry about permissions of stuff. So that's all fine. Notifications, I turn everything off. I don't want pop-ups happening down here. Everything is turned off. There's some that you can't, and that's Windows 10 being a meme. Make sure your focus assist settings is set to off and everything is off. You do not want your PC nuking you while you're on final. Power and sleep, you don't want anything turning off suddenly. Power settings, I use Process Lasso, so I use the highest performance, but if you don't have this, I recommend using the high performance one. And there is also another video which talks about that. We will get into that video. Storage, turn basically storage sense off. You don't want Windows automatically deleting your files for you. So make sure that is all turned off. View backend options, I think. Yep, we don't need that, sorry. So that's everything here. I don't use a tablet, so I'm not in tablet mode. Multitasking, I do have snap windows on, and basically that means that I can do that and then it all happens like that. That's totally optional. If it's not necessary, you can turn that off. I turn everything off basically back here because this thing, Windows 10, is designed to bloody, you know, promote itself and bloody, you know, although you do need to share across devices if you have a network of computers, which I usually do. I have 2 PCs, so I turn that on. But yeah, Windows 10 is designed to sell products to you. And having a lot of this turned on is something that you don't want, because it's just making it easier for them to sell shit to you. So turn it all off. Make sure your mouse and that is all aligned and used correctly. Otherwise, you will have mouse issues. You can define your cursor speed here, which is another thing I go into in the performance video. So I won't repeat it here. Autoplay, I mean, that's, you can leave that on if you want. Don't need to worry about phone because I haven't linked that. We're connected to the internet. Everything here is pretty much okay for default. Mode, Wi-Fi is on because that's what I'm using right now. Personalization, this is going to be a personal choice thing. You're not going to really need to worry too much about this, but this is where you set that dark mode on your PC. Turn off high contrast mode. Make sure that's not active. That will nuke your simulator in terms of the visuals. I don't have fancy themes or anything like that. I don't go in for visuals. I have just basically the nitty gritty. Everything here is turned off except for recently open items. Actually, I will turn that off. I don't want recently open items to show. I don't lock my taskbar because I like the fact that it pops up. and it hides when I'm not using it. So, but those are my settings there. That is that. Apps, basically, yeah, apps. This is where Windows wants you to actually add and remove programs. I don't actually use this at all. And try and also have your preferred things set here rather than have the Windows default, because when you double click an item, it will automatically bring up the Windows default, which is all Microsoft products, and it's a bit of a meme. I prefer to use my own personal ones. So that's fine. I don't have anything. Again, this is another location that you can define what's going to start up. I turn everything off. I don't want anything starting. Game mode, make sure if you're a flight simulator, you're turning it off, unless you're Microsoft Flight Simulator, in which case you'll turn it on. But in general, gaming mode, you will want that on if you're a gamer and you play games. But for flight simulators, turn it off. I've gone through this in other videos, so I'm not actually going to repeat myself here. It's already in the performance section. In fact, the rest of this is also in the performance video, so I don't want to repeat myself. We won't go there. So basically, turn off all backend auto settings, and you can customize and remove your start screen icons. I'll go through that in a separate video, to be honest, but now we go to the installation of the flight simulator. Now, there is a particular way, by the way, you install your flight simulation products if you're running FSX prepared. X-Plane does it differently. I don't use that, so we're not talking about that. We're not talking about Microsoft. We're just talking about FSX and prepared. Basically, what you want to do, install your flight simulator to wherever you prefer to keep it. I keep mine on the C drive because I have an SSD drive. There's no performance gain to having it on another drive if you've got an SSD drive. If you've got a HD drive, it is preferred to put it on a separate drive. It will help with loading times and performance. Basically, install your basic flight simulation software, run it, load into a flight, and shut it down. And now you've installed fully that flight simulator. Then you can start installing your add-ons. Start with Orbex. Start with the global regions. Install all your global regions for Orbex. Then install your regions themselves. Then go in and install your mesh. And then if you use Mega Scenery or if you use regional packages, install them. Then go back into Orbex and install your airports and utilities from Orbex. And then if you're a Black Marble user, install your Black Marble products. Then you can start installing stuff like airplanes, texture replacement packages, and weather programs. Basically, you layer your simulator. You start from the ground, you work your way up, and you will not have any issues. Do it one by one. Test the sim, make sure it's working, and then move on. If you do that, it will take 3 times longer, but you can troubleshoot as you go, and by the time you've finished, you will have a perfectly working simulator that is tuned to perfection. Okay, and trust me guys, you will notice a massive difference in performance if you use my Adam Experience Pack. Okay, again, you can find that in the link down in the description. I want to thank you so much for having the patience and getting this to the end. Guys, put butter in the comments, okay? And now that tells me you've watched this video till the very end. Please do that for me. Hit me up with a subscription and a like. And I love you. I will support you. You can meet me one-to-one in my Discord. I will help you go through anything. I won't help you guide you through this video because that's what this video is. It's a guide. It doesn't need extra tutorial after this, but I will have questions. If you need help and support, hit me up in my Discord. I am free for you guys to get you flying in the air with smooth performance and ease, guys. I love you all. Take care. Bye-bye.
$100, $50, $30, $20, $10.